In Stefan Feld's Bonfire, players are operating in a strange kind of fantasy world. In fact, there is a whole free backstory for those of you who are interested. And it's all around guardians and gnomes and their respective elders to score the most amount of victory points from different sources. I mean, it's a Stefan Feld game after all. You're mainly doing this by completing tasks to reignite your bonfires here. Why you are doing this, I don't really know, but that's something that you can read about yourself if you want. So we are not particularly exchanging medieval goods, aka wooden cubes, or trying to influence city nobility, aka worker placement. I think it's definitely a change in respect to the theme, but I'm a simple man, so I guess I personally would have preferred a more traditional setting. But again, that's only me. I mean, for sure, the board and the components and everything are absolutely beautiful and really nice to look at. And thanks to Dennis Lohausen for that. So I'm definitely able to accept this and enjoy the game for what it is. Mechanically, it's definitely somewhat unique, especially when compared to other games by Stefan Feld. But ultimately, you are puzzling your fate tiles onto your player board to gain enough action tiles in order to fire up your future actions, where some only require you to spend 1 action tiles and others need you to spend 2 or maybe even 3 in order to trigger them. As for those actions, you can sail around the board to take on task tiles or asking various guardians to join your party. You can also manipulate the great bonfire for additional resources which you typically need to gain even more tasks, or grab important portal tokens, another little puzzly aspect of the game. In between, you may want to complete the tasks you gained before, and there is literally a ton of different tasks waiting for you. And because of this sheer amount and the random placement during setup, no 2 games will be entirely the same. And completing a task simply means you have successfully reignited the bonfire. So you simply flip it to the other side. And speaking about the different tasks, for some tasks you simply need to have certain resources in your stock, like this one here, so 4 gold. Some ask for specific guardians on your pathways, and others want you to have various formations in the fate area of your player board. But those examples are really only the tip of the iceberg, as there is a vast number of different tasks waiting for you. Needless to say, those come with different difficulties and different amount of victory points you can score with those. Every time you complete a task, or rather ignite a bonfire, you will send 1 of your apprentices to the High Council, which gives you a one-time bonus depending on where you send the apprentice to. The amount of apprentices in the High Council is also the only trigger for the end of the game, depending on the number of players. So in a 3-player game, the 10th apprentice will trigger the end of the game, which is another pretty cool mechanic in Bonfire, by the way. But there is more. Don't forget to extend your pathways to allow your guardians to walk those, either to get some more resources or moving them through portals to the ignited bonfires, which will score you a lot of points at the end of the game. But therefore, you really need it all. Pathways, portals, ignited bonfires, and of course the corresponding guardian. In order to advance on the pathways, you have to make a procession, meaning you are moving your guardians. Again, either for those resources or bonus points when placing them next to an ignited bonfire. A game about gnomes wouldn't be necessarily a game about gnomes if you couldn't hire those somehow. So yes, you can do just that. Like with a task, there is a great number of different basic gnomes who provide you ongoing rule breaker abilities, such as getting extra steps during a procession or bonus resources when placing pathways. But then again, there is really an extensive list of different abilities. Instead of a standard gnome, you can also hire an elder, who doesn't provide you any, let's say, special abilities, but immediate victory points instead. And that's basically one of the few occasions you're really scoring points in-game. Usually you're scoring the majority of your points at the end of the game. Every now and then you might be able to fulfill a common task of the High Council, like having 5 different guardians or maybe 6 gnomes. This will then allow you to send a neutral apprentice to the High Council, also granting you a bonus, but will also drive the game to its end. And keep in mind that the amount of apprentices neutral or player wants will trigger the end of the game. At the end of the game, you tally up your points from bonfires, portals next to bonfires, matching pathways adjacent to bonfires, points for guardians, points for completed common tasks, remaining fate tiles, and leftover resources and action tiles. Again, the theme doesn't do anything for me, but the mechanics definitely make it a very, very enjoyable game with a lot of important and tight decisions around your fate tiles, the various tasks, the great bonfire, and the correct timing of getting portals, and many more things to consider. It's one of those games where you start reading the rules and really don't understand what it is you are trying to do, but gets pretty clear once you start playing, and yeah, everything falls into place just nicely. Maybe only the sheer amount of different tasks and gnome abilities can be overwhelming at first, and you will definitely consult the rules more than once during a session, trying to fully understand the iconography, but usually you're getting used to it sooner or later. But it's definitely nothing for the more casual taste. Bonfire definitely gives you a lot to think about and is definitely great for players who tend to be in a state of analysis paralysis, and not so great for players who don't like this at all. There's also some interaction, as another players can influence the great bonfire, so it's not at the right space where you want it to be, or they simply grab the task or gnome you desperately need it, but apart from that, you are mainly playing your own game. In my mind, it's definitely not his best game, but I really like the flow of the game without any actual game round, so you simply go around the table until the game actually ends. And as a bonus, it also comes with an easy to follow and quite challenging solo mode, so for me it's definitely a keeper.